Am I the asshole for not letting my wife choose a baby name after she wouldn't let me choose? The baby is due in 6 weeks and we still don't have a name. Before, when she found out she was pregnant, I was hoping for a girl as we already have a son. If the baby was a girl, I had a name ready to go. I had thought about it for a long time. Coraline. When I suggested it, she was like, over my dead body. I don't really know why she hates the name so much, but she was completely against it. She said I could name the baby Coraline if she died during childbirth. And she said she hoped she was having a boy so we could just avoid that conversation entirely. Well, after that I started suggesting several other girl names to see if we could land on one, and she didn't have any real input. She wanted another boy. Well, we found out it's a boy, and a few weeks later she is going through a baby name app and lists off a few names, and I say no. Then she comes at me with the name Liam. And I'm like, no. That's not. No. Like Liam Neeson? No. So since then I have suggested several other boy names and she keeps coming back to Liam. This was the first time she had mentioned Liam ever, and she didn't have some major attachment to it, so I wasn't shutting down her favorite name out of spite or anything. It was just another name in a list. Months go by and she hasn't suggested anything else. I'll suggest names and get an immediate no. Then later she will be like, what don't you like about Liam? And I tell her it just rubs me the wrong way. Edited for clarification. It's been 4 or 5 months like this and she still has yet to suggest a name. Every time I try to suggest new names she just says no, and then shortly after says it stresses her out and she doesn't want to talk about it. And we are coming up on the due day next month and are no closer to having a name. I feel like she is being a hypocrite about the whole thing. She tore down my favorite name from the jump, and then apparently I tore down her favorite name. But instead of being like me and suggesting alternate names, she continues to not want to talk about it, or brings up Liam again casually like it should still be on the table. When if it was a girl, my name would definitely not still be on the table. Am I the asshole for not letting her have the name she wants? Or is it only fair since she shut down my name so firmly in the beginning? Edit. Clarification. I'm not being petty of the name Liam. I really don't like it. This isn't a spite thing. I'm not just shutting her name choice down because she shut mine down. My name was for a girl, so I wasn't going to get my name choice regardless. She has only suggested like 3 names. The third being Liam. And since then nothing. This is about my wife having a double standard and not moving on from a name I disliked. It wasn't her favorite name ever or anything. Just another name in a list when it first came up. But I feel like an asshole for just not giving in. Even though I know she wouldn't have gave in on my name if it was a girl. I have even suggested names with Liam as a middle name. I really just don't like the name. The entire purpose of this was not am I the asshole for vetoing her name out of spite. Because I didn't. It's am I the asshole for not giving in and letting her have a name she really likes that I hate. Info. Are you vetoing Liam because you actually don't like it, or because you're bitter that she didn't like your name? Baby names are 2 yes, 1 no situation. But if you're just being bitter, which is the impression I get from you asking things like, isn't it only fair, then that's just ridiculous. Both of you are totally unrealistic in getting overly attached to one name. You both have to come with lists and hash out a compromise. P.S. Coraline is an awful name. I don't like Liam either, but you lost any moral high ground with Coraline. Suck it up, treacle. Your only option as I see it is to say you won't veto her choice, but you don't like it and would prefer she chose something else. She is being a bit unreasonable with a single choice. Edit. Change to You are the asshole if you're just vetoing Liam out of spite. Let it go that she didn't like Coraline and move forward trying to find a boy name that you both agree on. Don't veto to punish your wife. Baby names should have the 2 yes, 1 no rule. 2 yes equals you have the name, basically. Not the asshole. A child's name should be something both parents agree upon. She veto Coraline, and she has a right to do it, but you can also veto Liam. Coraline is not a good name. No assholes here, and names should be 2 yes. Don't be like a friend. He and his wife could not agree on a name for their already born son. He was walking around the hospital and stopped to chat with a nurse who said, I've always liked the name, friend's son name, and voila. Name of kid. Luckily it is a fairly normal name. Actually, maybe this is everyone sucks here except the baby, of course. There are literally millions of names and you guys can't agree on one? Am I the asshole for cracking jokes about my dead son? Throw away for privacy reasons. I know the caption might make it out to be an obvious yes, but please hear me out first. Me, 37 male, and my wife, 44 female, have been together for almost 15 years and our marriage was working out fine up until 3 years ago. We have 2 children but sadly lost our oldest to a freak accident 3 years ago. It was the most devastating thing to ever happen to both me and my wife and a rough chapter in our marriage, but with lots of therapy and deep and honest talks about our feelings we made it through that phase. Even though he is still missed dearly by all of us, life moved on. And everyone found different ways to cope with our loss. My wife is very religious and likes to think that it was God's plan to take him away from us, and even though I don't share that belief, I don't mind her seeing it that way. For me, the best coping mechanism is humor, and I've dealt with a lot of death and similar losses that way. I know my wife doesn't like it, so I avoid it as much as possible around her and always try to respect the way she sees death. My best friend is also the godfather of our oldest son and close to me and my wife. Sometimes the both of us go out for a drink and talk about old times. Occasionally my dead son is brought up too, and as much as I'm trying to remember him as the happy child he was, sometimes I just get overwhelmed with the sadness. So I use the way that works best for me and joke about it. It makes me feel better, and he used to love my jokes, so I like to think he looks down on me and laughs about them too. About 2 weeks my friend, unfortunately, mentioned a few of the jokes to my wife and she got very mad, called me an insensitive asshole and that I never cared about my son, that I probably wanted him dead anyway, and a lot of other nasty stuff. Now she's completely ignoring me, won't talk to me, and isn't okay with talking to our therapist either. I would have never joked about him when she's around, but I still feel entitled to cope in my way, and that is humor. I never wanted to make her feel disrespected or that I don't care about my son, but I feel like I have every right to cope just as much as she does. Too long did not read. I like to make jokes about my dead son and my wife found out and now she won't talk to me. And #X200B. Update. Added the joke explanation so I don't have to respond to everyone asking individually. My son was really into birds, especially eagles, and spend hours studying them, the way they live, eat, fly, etc. He even collected feathers. He died as he was adventuring with his friends and they, stupidly, climbed one of those huge cranes as a dare. Strong winds made him fall off as he was trying to take a picture for social media, at least that's what his friends told us, and died upon impact. And #X200B. The joke basically was, with his birdie obsession you could almost think he would have learned how to fly by then. English isn't my first language, so that's just a less than translation and not the actual sentence. And #X200B. Hope that clears things up, but I won't share any more info for both privacy reasons and because it's still a sensitive topic. Nah. As you say, you both cope in different ways. Losing a kid sucks, and I can understand her being mad that you would joke about it, but I can also understand you joking about it because it's likely how I would cope. I think couples therapy may help, hopefully, though, because the response to being upset, saying you never cared about your kid or wanted him dead, is unhealthy, and if you want the relationship to still work there is a lot that needs to be worked out. From this one tiny glimpse into your life on a Reddit post, I also could be totally off base. Not the asshole in my honest opinion. When my best friend's mom died a couple years back, the funeral was hard on everyone, that was, until one of our buddies cracked a fairly funny, albeit morbid, joke. Just about everyone died, pun intended, laughing except for like 2 people that knew her but didn't know her as well as us. She was an honest, God-fearing, hell of a comedian woman that had many late-night talks of deep discussions and jokes. I don't blame you for cracking jokes, and I think your wife needs to find a better way to cope cause that is obviously it doing her any good. Not the asshole, but your friend is for telling the jokes to your wife. What exactly was the joke? Not the asshole. She wants you to respect how she grieves, but will not extend that respect to you? That's very asshole. Why? I deal with grief in a similar manner. I joke about my mom dying sometimes. She hasn't complained yet. Not the asshole. I feel as though if you explained to your wife along of, listen, I miss him. I loved him just as much as you, but he loved my jokes and it helps me think he's laughing with me again kind of thing. At the end of the day you joking how you do brings on the image of him laughing and smiling too, which lifts the sadness away for a while, which is completely in your right. Of course it's a sensitive subject, but you're not a bad person. I guess it depends what the jokes are, but I'd vote not the asshole. It's your coping mechanism. You and your wife went through therapy, so she should be aware how you are dealing with the loss. I'm not sure why your friend felt the need to tell your wife, but you might need to let them know why you said what you said and that your wife doesn't like that sort of thing. Again, not the asshole unless the joke was really vulgar or something. Sorry about your loss. Not the asshole. It does depend on the joke though, but this is what I think based on the info you gave us. I don't see how it's fair that your wife can say it was God's plan to take your son too early, which is something that many people find offensive when they hear it about their dead loved ones, but you can't use your own copying mechanism. I mean, one could easily use her own argument against her and claim that by attributing the accident to God's plan, she doesn't care about her son because she thinks that whatever God decided is what should have happened. Edit. After reading your comment about what the joke was, you are definitely not the asshole. Am I the asshole for making my mom cry? I, 16F, have always felt different from the rest of my family. Some of my friends call me a weird person. I guess I get it from my dad, 41M, who's also a little odd. The relationship between me and my mom, 41F, has always been a little off, but it keeps getting worse and worse because of my brother, 14M. My parents are too afraid to punish him because of how badly he acts out. It's gotten to the point where sometimes I'm too scared to go downstairs because I know I'll get in trouble if he's in a bad mood. Recently, I've gotten fed up with this. Everything is basically handed to him. When he makes a mistake, my parents help him through the consequences and comfort him, but when I do something, I'm basically called an idiot. Whenever I tell my brother he's being rude to me or petty, I get in trouble, and my parents' justification is that the second man always gets caught. A few nights ago my brother lost his jersey and he had a game coming up, which happens every time. My parents were helping him find it while he was crying. I was on the couch watching TV when he came over and yelled at me. He called me selfish for not helping him and tried to make my parents ground me for not helping. Luckily, even with this double standard, they're not dumb enough to make me do it and told him to stop. He didn't stop and started crying more, and I said something that basically boiled down to, "Then stop losing all your shit, idiot. Maybe I would feel inclined to help you if I knew you wouldn't do it again." In much politer terms. He started crying harder and sat down while my parents were still looking for the jersey, and I went to my room. Later my mom came up after they found it and told me I should go down and apologize to him because he thinks I hate him and I should have just let her and my dad handle the situation. I told her that I wouldn't because he needs to learn that me getting mad when he says something unreasonable is a natural response. My mom put her head down and was clearly holding back tears. To her, family is the most important value, and I know seeing me and my brother fight tears her up, but honestly I'm tired of getting in trouble for having normal reactions to him being rude to me. And I know this sounds horrible, but I've grown a resent against my parents because they overlook everything I do. I've tried to be a great daughter to them, doing chores without them asking, or if they do I ask, I don't complain. Cleaning my room, staying out of their way, but nothing is ever good enough. It got to the point where I thought me existing was the problem, so I stayed in my room all day and they even got mad at that. I don't understand what my brother has that I don't, and I told that to my mom in longer terms because I didn't know what to say at the time. So I guess it didn't come across as well and just sounded like me being a bitch to my brother and actually hating him. So she left my room and cried. At the time I was too pissed off to comfort her. I just want them to love me the same. Anyways, am I the asshole? Not the asshole. This way your family treats you is unfair and they are lacking awareness and reflection. It's not your fault in any way. Parents should respond as equally to their children as possible, or it does breed resentment. I know from experience, as the least favorite child. Not the asshole. What does your brother have that you don't? A penis. Seriously though, your brother is the golden child and you are the scapegoat. He can do no wrong while you're to blame for everything. You have a dysfunctional family and there's not much you can do about it as a minor. Your brother will always be favored. Why? Because he has the golden penis, or maybe because he's the baby. Who cares? In 2 years get yourself out of this house. Find yourself a good therapist. Go very low contact or even cut off your family. You don't want any future family you have to inherit your scapegoat title. Not the asshole. No, your brother having what almost sounds like an anxiety attack over the missing jersey is not related to any action you took, and you setting a boundary that you're not getting involved in these situations when he's openly rude to you is pretty reasonable. Your mother shouldn't be placating this behavior, so her asking for an apology that isn't warranted was a mistake, and you refusing another reasonable response. It sounds like she is overwhelmed with his behavior, but you can't be expected to act in a parental role as a sibling. Not the asshole, your brother sounds really spoiled and the double standard must be super difficult, so sorry you're dealing with this. It's not your job to be perfect at all times, nor is it to spoil your brother or to comfort your mom, after getting so emotional for a normal reaction. You should be allowed to be a teenager, that's all. Honestly, I think your parents should consider couples or family therapy. This situation isn't healthy for anyone and it ends up you feeling unloved. Not the asshole. To start, 14M is a little too old to be throwing a tantrum and crying. He needs to start acting somewhat like an adult and realize there's consequences for not being organized. Second, you shouldn't apologize if you didn't do anything wrong. I do try to go a bit out of my way to make my mom feel good about things, but I know she loves me and treats me well. I don't know if I'd feel the same way if she gave preferential treatment to my siblings. Not the asshole. Your parents have set your brother for a lifetime of problems. I wouldn't be surprised if he has had problems at school. As the scapegoat, you will never be good enough, as you have already discovered. When you leave to go to school, and then graduate, your parents will still be trying to launch your brother. I suggest that you make your own plans for your future. There is nothing that you can do to change the dynamics in your family. Plan your life with what you want to do and not anything that the guilt-tripping that your parents try to lay on you. Not the asshole, I am so sorry. The favoritism they have for your brother is enormous and I can't even imagine what it's like to deal with that. I think you need to tell them what you've said here if you haven't already, about how you do your best but always get in trouble and that you just want their love and acceptance. Maybe that will wake your parents up to the awful treatment you are receiving. Good luck, op. I really wish you the best. Does your brother have any diagnosed mental health issues? Your parents might be accommodating him because they see him as unable to control himself, whereas they perceive you as being more mature and capable. Or are they misogynistic? Do you come from a community that places a higher value on sons than daughters? If so, that truly sucks. Your parents sound super stressed by your brother's behavior, and that may also color their interactions with you. However, not one bit of any of that is fair to you. Not the asshole. Tell your parents how you feel because right now they're so focused on your brother's tantrums that they've lost sight of the big picture. And you deserve to be loved the same. Am I the asshole for defending my little brother? I, 27M, am the eldest of 5 siblings and married with twin boys. I move out of my crowded parents' house after my siblings complain about having to live with kids and move in with my half-brother, Jack, 15, 3 years ago. Jack lost his father at 11 and have been staying at his childhood home with a paid caretaker. He was more than happy to let us move in, claiming that the house would be less quiet with us there. My wife and children love living there as the house is fully equipped with the latest technology and there are enough space for our children to run around. It's $1 million house after all. Jack refused to accept any kind of payment from me, even for grocery, and insisted that I use the money to save up for a house. I am determined to move out as soon as possible because the thought of me mooching off my younger siblings just doesn't sit well with me. So, after 3 years of saving up, I managed to save enough money for a house down payment. I mentioned this to my wife but she quickly shot down my idea. She suggested that we stayed for a few more years, at least until the kids are old enough because she doesn't want our kids to experience hardship. She also added that it's not like having us stay even longer would create a dent on Jack's finance and he wouldn't mind. I began arguing with her and she told me that I am being selfish by wanting to move out of a perfectly good life and drag our child into a life of hardship and poverty. Yesterday, Jack told me that some of his friends are coming for a sleepover. When the friends came, my wife got angry and shouted at him that he should have asked for her permission first since she is having her family over. I defended my brother and we got into an argument. It ends with her bursting into tears and screaming at me for being a terrible husband because I choose my brother over her and our children. My in-laws started getting involved and Jack ended up leaving the house with his friends, clearly upset. I demands my wife to apologize and her replies is what made me snap. She told me that this is none of her fault and Jack wouldn't be this rude if he was raised by good people. Now I am contemplating my marriage with her and honestly I just couldn't imagine raising my kids with her anymore. But it might just be my emotion talking, so I now turn over to the Reddit strangers for guidance. Am I the asshole for defending my little brother? Edit. Some of you are confused with Jack's situation. My mother signed off all her right on him in order to save her marriage and even if she didn't, she is unfit to raise him. His aunt live overseas so she hire a live-in caretaker to take care of him. And since there are questions regarding his financial, I will clear up that Jack's family consist of businessmen and real estate maniacs. I don't know much about other stuff, but I know that he inherits a lot of money as the only living biological grandchild. His family lawyer and his aunt are the one who manage his inheritance. Not the asshole. Your wife is delusional. The house belongs to your brother, not her. You need to move out now, and if she doesn't follow, serve her with an eviction notice. Not the asshole, but after you explanation, I'd say she is in it for the money and wants you to help her, stealing your brother's house so that you and your children can have a happy life there. Try to talk to her. If she is not changing her point and sees that she was wrong, maybe hide your savings and consider divorce, or else it's gonna be one hell of a ride for the rest of your life. Not the asshole, she's trying to take advantage of your brother. Good for you for standing up to her. Sounds like she just likes the comforts of his house and wants to mooch off him as long as possible. Not the asshole, she wants to live in someone else's house rent-free and then try to dictate who they can have over. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. Not the asshole, you're being a decent human being by not taking advantage of your brother's already generous offer, and your wife needs to understand that the home you're living in is your brother's and he's entitled to do what he wants. Your wife, however, is an awe. If she wants full control, then she needs to move into her own place, which is what you want to do. It sounds like you guys are far from being people who will go through extreme hardship if you move out now. Will it be tough sometimes? Sure, that's life. So with all that said, you guys should probably move into your own place, especially before you burn your bridges with your brother. Not the asshole. I'll say it for the millionth time. If someone is doing you a favor, like Jack letting you live rent-free in his house for 3 years, you owe it to that person to make doing that favor easy. Jack can do whatever he wants, it's up to your wife to work around his schedule. Don't do anything rash here, because I really doubt that divorcing your wife will make this situation better. Not the asshole, why should he ask permission when it's his house? But also, why is a 15-year-old living with a paid caretaker instead of his other alive parent? I am assuming your mom. Also, your wife is cruel, especially with her statement about him not being raised by good parents. Like, yay, his fucking dad died when he was 11 and has been living on his own with a caretaker since then. He hasn't had parents since he was 11. And why does she think her kids would be living in poverty if you have enough for a down payment? Would you not be making enough money to cover the mortgage, bills, and food? Not the asshole. It's not her house, you two are staying there as guests. He doesn't have to ask for her permission. He could have given a heads up a day or two in advance as a courtesy, but that's all.